To this now, 5 people are applying for bail in the case of aiding and abetting convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester to escape from the Mangaung prison, and 4 of the accused were employees of G4S, while one was an employee of a CCTV supplying company to G4S when the incident happened in May last year. We look at their individual involvement in the matter and the personal circumstances that have been submitted to the court. And for this now, we cross live to SABC News senior reporter Chriselda Lewis, who's been following this particular case. Chriselda, let's talk about these accused. They're very interesting in their involvement in this particular matter.
Well, Bongiwe, the appropriate place to start is to take a look at Senohe Matsware. You would recall that he is a security supervisor, or was, at the Mangaung prison. What we heard from the investigating officer who took the stand in opposing bail, he says that on the 27th of April, this was in 2022, last year, Dr. Nandipha Makutumana's father had hired a vehicle at OR Tambo International Airport, and 2 days later, this is now on April the 29th, accused number 1, Senohe Matsware, allegedly used the same car that was hired by Dr. Nandipha Makutumana's father. And basically, that vehicle was used to transport the corpse into the Mangaung prison, which would be used then as a decoy in the escape of Thabo Bester. So the body was allegedly earlier claimed by Dr. Nandipha Makutumana under the guise that she was helping a certain Zanda Moyo to have his brother buried, but it was never buried. That corpse was never buried at Bongiwe, and instead a fake funeral service was held, and that's how Matsware is then believed to have taken that body into the prison premises and basically stored at a workshop there. So according to that evidence in chief by the investigating officer, that is what places Matsware at the center of this escape plan by Thabo Bester. So there are also Bongiwe alleged bank deposits that investigators found that were made to Matsware by a certain TK Nkwana, who we've now come to understand was one of the aliases used by Thabo Bester. And those transactions, according to the investigating officer, amount to about plus minus 150,000 rand. But of course, there was then cross-examination that came into play. The lawyer for Matsware, Kagisho Moruri, in cross-examination, though, trying to poke holes in the investigating officer's testimony, basically suggesting that the initials TK could mean anyone's nickname, for example, or anyone's initials, basically trying to suggest that those may not have been monies that were basically deposited by Bester himself. But what is quite worth noting in that cross-examination, Bongiwe, was that Matsware's lawyers basically did not include, or he didn't challenge the investigating officer on what he had said about Matsware transporting that corpse onto the premises. So that's how then we're dealing with the accused number 1 in this particular matter. If we look at the second individual who's also applying for bail, that would be Teboho Dipulo, who is a CCTV installer. The investigating officer on the stand saying that Teboho Dipulo on the next day, this was after the body had been brought onto the premises of the Mangaung prison, had basically placed that corpse in a trolley dustbin and pretended he was cleaning the prison yard. So the officer says then Dipulo took it to the Broadway section. So this is the section where Thabo Bester's cell was, and that he took it in through an emergency door. Seeing that Dipulo, as I've already explained, was a technician, according to the investigating officer, he had a way of disconnecting the CCTV system basically to get in, and the investigating officer says that is exactly what Dipulo did. He then allegedly left this corpse, then Mongiwe, in a dark room until a day that it ended up in a Bester's cell. So you'd also know that the investigating officer also making, startling claims, saying that Dipulo had basically called the police himself. He wanted to speak to an officer he could trust. Those are the words coming out of the investigating officer. And the investigating officer says then police then met with Dipulo at a local mall, which is not too far from where I am, where he detailed his role in this escape and that of his colleagues. This is now contained in what the investigating officer has basically told this court. And further, the investigating officer says that Matsware, who we just spoke about, who is the first accused in this matter, had basically deposited a total of 14,000 rand for this alleged role in this escape. But of course, Dipulo's lawyers, who have already cross-examined the investigating officer, basically saying that their client is denying verbatim how this all unfolded. What they say is, remember, the investigating officer basically says that Dipulo is the one who called police and made this sort of confession. But what Dipulo is saying basically is that he never called police, and it was in fact police that called him, and that's how he was arrested. They even questioned basically, how Dipulo would have gotten hold of the telephone number of the police who were working on this case, if police are contending that, he was the one that had actually called them. So we'll move to, the third who is applying for bail in this particular matter. That is Buti Masukela. So Masukela's alleged involvement there, Bongiwe, comes in after the corpse now was brought onto the premises at the Mangaung prison. It's understood, of course, through the investigating officer, that after the accused number one, this is Matsware, brought the corpse onto the prison premises, that it was Buti Masukela who was guarding some of these prison doors. And we understand that that is where the entrance rules to this facility were flouted, and the corpse was then taken onto the premises. And then it is alleged that it is Buti Masukela who allegedly then helped Matsware, who was driving this vehicle, to offload the corpse. So his lawyer has not yet begun a cross-examination of the investigating officer, and we're expecting to start with him. This is on Friday in Masukela's quest for bail. I want to take a look now at the fourth and the fifth in this particular bail application. So number 4 would be Teo Makota, and Nastasia Janssen is number 5. You would recall those two were arrested at the same time, and we understand that they were designated in the CCTV room. Of course, that's according to the investigating officer. They were believed to have been on duty on the night of the 2nd of May, 2022, in the morning leading up to the 3rd of May. Now, this is when the escape itself had taken place. They were the ones, we understand, who were opening the doors, and the same doors we believe that Thabo Bester had used to escape. So the investigating officer also telling us startling details, saying that some of the accused did all of this for money. They basically say that Makota is believed to have received 10,000 rand first and another 4,000 rand. All of this now 14,000 rand after the escape, while Nastasia Janssen is not believed to have received any money. So that will give you a summation of how these 5, are alleged by the state to be involved in the escape of Thabo Bester. We're back in court, of course, on Friday for the continuing cross-examination of the investigating officer by the defense.
It'll be interesting to see, as you've put us in the picture, Chriselda, even viewers who probably hadn't been following us closely now have an idea of what role each accused is accused of having played here. Thank you so much for that. Do appreciate it. And of course, it does put it succinctly for us to understand tomorrow when court resumes who is accused of what. That's our SABC News senior reporter, Chriselda Lewis, bringing us the very latest from Bloemfontein. Be sure to follow tomorrow as, she will be following the proceedings in court front and center.